It is so good to be back here on the Blue Ski Mask Show. We're Brock and Kurt. And Kurt, we were away for a while.
Yes, we were. Covering Oakland men's basketball. It was a fun time, but that time is now over, which means it is time for another episode of the Blue Ski Mask Show. And we've been gone for, I think, 2 weeks. So a lot has happened in these 2 weeks. Mainly, the Lions got really busy in free agency and re-signed some players. Brock, do you want to go through some of those?
Sure. So we've got Graham Glasgow, 3 years at $20 million. And obviously he's been a tremendous piece there among the offensive line the last couple of years. Cornerback Amik Robertson signed a 2-year deal worth $9.25 million. He's from the Las Vegas Raiders, which that's going to be huge. I mean, especially we'll get into we'll get into some more stuff later in terms of cornerback, but that's going to turn out to be a really big signing. And then you've got another big signing, one I really liked, defensive tackle DJ Reader signed a 2-year, $22 million deal. He was from the Cincinnati Bengals. I have a friend who's a Bengals fan. He was not happy.
I can see why. We have our D tackle for the future, at least for 2 years of the future, hopefully. And then we also signed a guard, Kevin Zeitler from the Baltimore Ravens, for a year and $6 million. And this was a really low-key, good signing. Zeitler, was still on the board for a while when free agency opened. And I think teams are scared of signing him because he's 34 or 33. But this previous season, he ranked in the top 3 for pass blocking, which I don't know how you measure a stat like that, but cool. That sucks for the Ravens though. So
I saw a video on Twitter of Kevin Zeitler doing pass blocking drills in the hospital room while his wife was waiting to give birth in labor or something like that. Pretty funny guy, and I think he fits the Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, culture, if you will. I think he fits that pretty well. But continue on here. We got 2 more.
We got defensive end Marcus Davenport. He got signed for a year for $6.5 million. He's from the Minnesota Vikings. And cornerback Emmanuel Mosley. We re-signed him for a year for $2.875 million. So we had a lot of money. We spent a lot of money. I think, we'll discuss this in a second, but pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. Absolutely. And not only did the Lions sign a plethora of players, they extended GM Brad Holmes and head coach Dan Campbell. Both of them now locked up through the 2027 season. And Kurt, we don't know how much they're getting paid, but you have to think this is the best possible thing for the franchise right now.
Right. Give them their money. It doesn't matter how much they want. We haven't had a coach and GM duo like Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell probably ever in franchise history, unless you want to go back to the 50s. So, another good move. But overall, how are you feeling about the players we signed and the extension of Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes?
I feel good. They didn't need to do a whole lot, and obviously the draft is still coming up. They didn't need to do a whole lot, though, over the offseason, I feel because they were, as everyone knows, 1/2 away from playing in the Super Bowl. And so they didn't need to go out there and make any, big-time signing. They made a few of them, sure, but they didn't. It's not like they went out and signed one of the best players in the league. It wasn't like that, but they made good additions, especially at corner and along the defensive line too, and offensive line. That's what we know that Brad Holmes likes to do, is build up the trenches, and I feel like that's what he's working on even more this offseason. And one last thing, you have to feel with signing Robertson and extending Emmanuel Mosley, they're not going corner in the first round. I think you can almost guarantee that now. We'll talk a little bit about Cam Sutton in a second. But even still, even with Sutton not in the picture anymore, I still don't think they're going to go corner.
I totally agree with you. And earlier, a couple shows ago, I really wanted the Lions to really go after Chop Robinson, and I'm going to stand by that. So I think realistically, we see a defensive lineman go at, was it pick 29 that they have? So no, yeah, I'm in full agreement. The only way I see them drafting a corner is if maybe one of the corners who is projected in the first round just happens to follow the Lions. I think sure you can take a swing at a corner, but yeah, really good things this free agency.
Absolutely. And we've alluded to it a couple times already, so let's get into it. Cam Sutton has had a bad few weeks. He had a warrant out for his arrest, and these are about things that we probably can't talk about on the air, but he was being looked for. There's I believe, still currently a warrant out for his arrest, but no one can find him. He is off the grid. And since the news broke, he's since been released. He's no longer a part of the team. And they have voided the $10.5 million that Cam Sutton was owed this upcoming season. So he's not in the picture anymore. You're looking at Amik Robertson as potentially cornerback one. Other than that, you got Emmanuel Mosley, Kindle Vildor. I mean, maybe I was wrong. I could see him now that I say it. I could see him go corner. I don't know.
It's definitely still possible, but I did see something. I think the other day, when the warrant was issued, I think Cam Sutton was strength training, like at the Lions facility, which is crazy. And obviously, like, you know, the Lions can't like turn him in for arrest or arrest Cam Sutton, but I'm pretty sure they urged him to like turn himself in. And ever since he left the facility, I don't think anyone knows what Cam Sutton is up to. So definitely a really weird situation to be in. But nonetheless, Cam Sutton is a bum for now. And yeah, hopefully justice is served.
Yes. And hopefully what is alleged is not true. We'll have to wait and see on that. Let's get into a little bit more actual football stuff. Obviously, it's the off season. There are no games being played. But, Kurt, the running back situation in the NFC North in particular is crazy different. Even in the NFL as a whole. Mm-hmm. Saquon Barkley, gone. And here in the NFC North, you're looking at a total like shift in running backs from 2 years ago. It's pretty crazy. You've got, 2 years ago, you had DeAndre Swift, who was a Lion. Aaron Jones was a Packer up until just a month or two ago. David Montgomery was a Bear. And Dalvin Cook was a Viking. And now, 3 of those guys are on different teams. It's unbelievable. Swift, who was a Lion in 2022, is now a Bear after being with the Eagles. Aaron Jones, who, like I said, was a Packer, is now with the Vikings. And David Montgomery, who was a Bear, is now obviously a Lion. And you got Josh Jacobs now on the Packers. It's pretty funny how things work out that way.
Little running back shuffle, I guess. But it doesn't matter what these other teams have. The Lions still have the best running back core in the division, probably. So, yeah. But speaking of free agency, Brock, what was your favorite free agency signing this offseason so far?
I'm going to go ahead and say Kirk Cousins.
Really?
No, I'm joking.
I was going to say.
No.
I've heard you say some shocking things on this show before, but that probably would have been the most shocking.
No. Kirk Cousins is, 35, 36 years old, and the Falcons signed him for 4 years? Come on. That's my least favorite one, if any. But if I had to pick a favorite, I think it's got to be Saquon Barkley. Just because that Eagles the Eagles are going to be really good. And we've talked about how they self-destructed a little bit toward the end of last year, losing to the Buccaneers in the playoffs. I think they lost 6 of their last 7 or something like that. But Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. I mean, come on, man. Along with the defense that they have, that is full of former Georgia players, I really like that signing. I like it a lot, and I think the Eagles are going to be a problem in the NFC. How about you?
I think my favorite signing is Mr. Unlimited, also known as Russell Wilson, to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We were just in Pittsburgh, funnily enough, but what a masterclass signing, if we're being real, right? Russell Wilson is still owed that $30+ million from the Broncos. The Steelers approach him, say, hey, here's you're going to get paid anyway. Here's the least amount of money we can pay you to come quarterback our team. And, I mean, they had Kenny Pickett the previous season, who was a top 32 QB in the league, but not a top 30 QB in the league. And you can say what you want about Russell Wilson. Anything is an upgrade over Kenny Pickett. And, of course, they got Justin Fields, which wasn't a signing, but it was their trade. So I kind of like this idea of you have Russell Wilson. When his time is over, maybe you go to Justin Fields as soon as next season for really, really cheap. And I think the Steelers made a playoff appearance, if I'm correct.
Yep.
And if that team can make a playoff appearance with Kenny Pickett, I mean, the sky's the limit once you have a good QB. So that was my favorite signing.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what Pittsburgh does with now Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. 2 very unique quarterbacks, in my opinion. So, I don't know. I'd guess they're going to start Russ.
Yeah, 100%.
But to be honest, I think Justin Fields gets a lot of hate, a lot more than he deserves. I think he's a good quarterback, and I think he's worthy of starting somewhere in the league. But it seems like he's going to be a backup this fall. One other thing I liked about Saquon Barkley's signing was when his daughter was at the press conference or something, and Saquon was just getting to Philadelphia and meeting all the new people and things like that, and Saquon's daughter says, "Daddy, does this mean we get to win now?" And she just totally unknowingly flamed the New York Giants franchise. I thought that was very funny. Least favorite signing. I kind of already said mine.
I'm in full agreement. I think Kirk Cousins was also the worst signing, or at least my least favorite, for basically the same reasons that you had, right? This is a guy coming off, I believe, an Achilles injury, which, to be fair, won't really affect Kirk Cousins, but he's 36. You have him locked up for 4 years, and you're paying him, I think it was close to $200 million. What are we doing?
Yeah.
You have this young core of offensive weapons. You have Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier too, if you want to throw him in there. And what do? You sign this old, could be possibly washed QB for 4 years.
Yeah. I don't understand it at all. We'll get into it to our, the next portion of our mock draft after the break here in a second, but I'd almost rather have seen the Falcons go and draft Bo Nix, who I'm not high on at all. I don't think Bo Nix is going to be successful in the NFL, but I'd almost rather them go sign Bo Nix just because I feel like he fits what they're trying to do better. Or Michael Penix even.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't understand. Like you mentioned, they have this young core of fresh talent, and you bring in Kirk Cousins to try and win you games. I don't understand it at all. I don't think they're going to be. I think a lot of people are projecting them to be contenders in the NFC South. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. I don't think they're going to win that division. I don't think they're going to get a wild card. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think this is a very similar situation to what we just saw Russell Wilson do in Denver. And we all know how that worked out. So, all right. So the NFL rolled out some new rules, which it seems they do every offseason at this point. And let's start with the first one that came out. Let's go in chronological order here. The first one that came out was a few days. Was it yesterday? A few days ago?
Yeah, I think yesterday or the day before that.
The NFL has banned what is called, I believe, the hip drop tackle, which, if you don't know what that is, it's where a defender, runs up to the player with the ball, the receiver, the running back, whoever it may be, quarterback, grabs them by around the waist, around the hip area, and just drops, lets all their weight go, and brings them to the ground, holding their hips and dropping to the ground. Kurt, what do you think about this?
I think it's stupid. I'm gonna side with a lot of people on that and say it's stupid because it's an essential part of tackling. Me personally, I've never played football in my life, okay? But if I'm like a 6-foot safety and I have like Travis Kelce running at me, if I throw all of my body weight just into Travis Kelce, like at his chest, I'm not guaranteed to bring him down. If I go for his waist or his hip, I have a chance to bring him down. So I think it's stupid. And I know a lot of NFL and former NFL players were complaining about it on Twitter. I think J.J. Watt was probably the most notable, saying let's just fast forward to flag football.
Yep.
Which I think is a little corny in itself, tweeting that out. But it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what J.J. Watt thinks. A guy who dominated the league for so long. And yeah, I'm not a fan. Brock, you have any thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm in total agreement with J.J. Watt. I think it's trending toward flag football. Here's my problem. Okay, you can't use the hip drop tackle anymore. Okay, fine. But here's what you also can't do. You can't hit them high. You can't hit them around the head or neck area. You can't hit quarterbacks low, or else that's a flag. You can't lower the crown of your helmet. What can you do anymore? I don't understand what the NFL expects these defenders to do. You hit them high, penalty. Do the hip drop tackle, penalty. Hit quarterbacks low, penalty. Targeting, penalty. I don't understand how you can possibly ask these guys to play defense anymore. It doesn't make any sense to me. Everything is now apparently a penalty. So I don't know. Maybe we'll have to see how it plays out later, when the season starts. But I don't like it at all. And today, the NFL came out with another new rule, this one relating to kickoffs. And from what I understand, they have adopted what the XFL does in terms of kickoffs, I think is what I read. Explaining everything that happens during this specific kickoff would take the entire show, it seems. I mean, there are just so many intricacies surrounding this rule. But essentially, from what I understand, the kicker kicks from the same spot as before, except for that all 10 other players on the field line up at the receiving team's 35-yard line, I think.
It's something like that. To me, it almost looks like a safety punt.
Yep.
But a kickoff.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yep. And so then I believe they line up at the receiving team's 35-yard line. The receiving team has 10 players lined up 5 yards away from them. Which would make it the 30-yard line. It could be 30 and 25, but I think it's 35-30. So you've got 20 guys lined up within 5 yards, and then you have the kicker kicking the ball to the kick returner. And what's weird about this, I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to negate players running full speed at each other. But this is going to be weird.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it also is, I think the NFL did it also try to get rid of more touchbacks because we've seen it happen a lot more frequently because why not try to kick a touchback?
Yep.
You know, it makes more sense. So maybe they're trying to make kickoffs mean something again. Yep. So this is one I don't really care about. I guess we'll see how it works. It's just going to be very, very weird to see it like on the field, at least for me.
Yeah. I think I heard today that there were only like the returner only returned the ball in all of the NFL this past season 22% of the time. So 78% of kickoffs were touchbacks, which is, I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, I remember watching guys like Percy Harvin and Devin Hester returning touchdowns, it seemed like every game. And now you hardly see a return touchdown at all throughout the entire NFL season. There could not have been more than 5 kickoffs returned for touchdowns last year in the NFL. There just could not have been. So hopefully we'll get to see a little bit more of that, but I still think it'll obviously be wildly different than what we're used to, but we'll have to wait and see. Let's get into the mock draft that we started a long time ago, and then we restarted a week or two after that, and now here we are again. We did 1 through 10. That must have been on the last episode that we did. Go back and listen to that if you haven't already. But let's get into it. At number 11, the Minnesota Vikings are drafting. And Kurt, I remember when we first went ahead and did this, I had J.J. McCarthy going here, and you said that was unspeakable. Now, I think it's unspeakable to even consider him falling that far to 11. He just continues to rise. I know this is not, neither of us have J.J. McCarthy going here, but I just remember that. I wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, I do have a quarterback going here to the Vikings, though, at 11, and I think it'll be Drake May. I didn't have him in my top 10. I think he's going to be a bust. And, yeah, the Vikings need a quarterback because they just lost Kirk Cousins. And Kurt?
That's fair. I have Dallas Turner, defensive end from Roll Tide University, going to the Vikings because I think if Dallas Turner falls past the Falcons at 8, he'd be too tempting not to take at 11 for the Vikings. And with how many quarterbacks are in this draft, and the Vikings have 2 first-round picks, I think they'll solve the QB issue later in the first round. So
that would be smart because I think going for either, I mean, if one of the top 4, Williams, May, Daniels, or McCarthy are there, I think you take them. But if they're all gone at that point and the Vikings don't trade up, I think you're reaching for either Bo Nix or Michael Penix at that point. So I do like that pick in Dallas Turner. I think solving the quarterback problem would be good later on for the Vikings if one of those 4 guys isn't there. At number 12, the Denver Broncos are taking Jared Verse from Florida State. That's my pick, although they need a quarterback too.
They do, but we know the Denver Broncos love their tight ends. And Mr. Brock Bowers from Georgia is still on the board at 12 in my mock draft. So I think they go Brock Bowers because why not? He's maybe a little undersized for his position. But how many times have people said that about so many great players in all of sports? And if he's there at 12 again, I think he's a talent you just can't pass up at 12 because the Broncos need pretty much anything. So I feel like Brock Bowers would be solid there.
Yeah. Yeah, moving on to number 13, the Las Vegas Raiders. They need a lot too. They're seemingly a struggling franchise right now, and so I have them bolstering the offensive line, going and getting Talise Fuaga, who I believe is from Oregon State.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, he's my pick, but I don't know. I could see them going so many different directions.
Which is why I have them taking Quinyon Mitchell. He's the first corner off my board in this mock draft, from Toledo. We know that the Raiders like to make out-of-the-box picks.
Yeah.
And there's probably no other player who's out of the box like Quinyon Mitchell in the first round. He has a a very low floor, but such a high ceiling. And I think that's what the Raiders are all about. And I think that's why they'll take him there at 13.
I could see it. Moving on here, we've got the New Orleans Saints, and I have them going with receiver. Malik Neighbors out of LSU. They've got Chris Olave, and forgive me, I can't remember what other receivers they have right now, but maybe that's why they need to go and get a receiver. They have not a very good offense, I don't think. So, giving Derek Carr, is he the starting quarterback in New Orleans these days? Giving him a few weapons, I think that might help him out.
I'm totally cool with that pick, and I have them taking Terrion Arnold from Roll Tide University, another corner. I feel like in the first round, a lot of teams like to piggyback on what teams before them are doing, and I think the Saints do that here. Take Terrion Arnold, another corner. So back-to-back corners at picks 13 and 14 fly off the board.
Yeah, moving on. 15, I've got another corner. The corner you had 2 picks ago in Quinyon Mitchell. I don't think this guy's going to fall much. I couldn't see him falling farther than 20th overall. I mean, he's a stud. He had a great combine. He put up some monster numbers, and I think the Colts go and grab him at 15.
I have the Colts taking Jared Verse from Complainers University at 15. Colts need a lot. I like teams building through the trenches. You build through the trenches with Jared Verse at 15.
You've got to admit that Florida State was hosed.
They were hosed, but they got embarrassed by Georgia. So
they did, but half their team was out. I don't think they would not have beaten Michigan in the Rose Bowl.
They wouldn't have beaten anybody.
No, they probably wouldn't have. But they had an argument. They were undefeated. What else are you supposed to do?
And let's look at it this way. We're sidetracking into college football, but whatever. Florida State got more publicity from complaining so much. If they were a top 4 seed, the publicity they got for complaining beats them getting a top 4 seed.
Could be. We'll move a little quicker here. We got to get into the NBA. 16 overall, the Seattle Seahawks. I have them taking Troy Fautanu. So I don't even know I can't even remember where he's from. But he's an offensive lineman. He's
from
Washington.
Washington.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. The college football runner-up. Seahawks offensive line.
I'll have them go the opposite. They're going to take I can't pronounce his name. Leatu Latu from Lonzo Ball University. Another guy with a very, very high ceiling. And I think he's too good of a prospect to pass up. And now we have the Jacksonville Jaguars at 17.
Yeah, they're going Chop Robinson here. They need some defensive help, and I think they're going to go get their pass rusher of the future.
I have them taking stud Cooper DeJean from Boring University. Oh, sorry, Iowa University. And yeah, I think Jacksonville is in love with having good corners. And I think they take a swing on Cooper at 17.
Yeah, I could see it. 18, the Cincinnati Bengals. They go and get their replacement for DJ Reader, who they lost. We talked about him earlier. Byron Murphy II from Texas.
I have the Bengals finally waking up and realizing that Joe Burrow deserves better. They're going to take Troy Fautanu from Michael Penix Jr. University, beef up the O-line instead of drafting, receivers in the first round.
Yeah. Moving on. 19. Yeah, because they've taken T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. They've taken quite a few. So it'd be time to move on to the offensive line and get Joe Burrow some help. Because if he's on the bench the whole season, Bengals aren't going to go anywhere. At 19, the LA Rams. I've got them going with Leatu Latu. We talked about earlier from UCLA.
Which is, I will say I love that pick, and I really hope it happens. But I don't know if he falls to 19. But a guy who could be there at 19, Byron Murphy II from Texas. So we both have the Aaron Donald replacement in a way.
Yes.
here at 19.
I do think they're going to need to take someone along the defensive line pretty early in this year's draft. And to round it out, at number 20, we both agree for the first time. We've had a lot of the same players, but this one we both agree the same player going to the same team, and it's Amarius Mims, an offensive tackle from Georgia. Whoever it may be, Fields or Wilson, he's got to be protected. And so we've got Mims going at 20. Next week, will we round out the first round next week?
We're going to round out the first round next week, and we're going to have an in-depth discussion about J.J. McCarthy.
Good.
Because it needs to happen, and I don't know anyone else who knows more about J.J. McCarthy than you, Brock. So it'll be a good way to educate me and all the listeners a little bit on why is this guy rising? What happened?
The Detroit Pistons are back to being the worst team in the NBA. And Kurt, last time we were on, I think the Wizards were like half a game or a game worse than Detroit. They were kind of fighting for that last team in the NBA spot. But now it's the Pistons.
Yep, and since our last show, the Pistons have gone 3-9, which is weird saying. And it's even more funny now that they're the worst team again, even though they went 3-9. But the Pistons are currently on a 7-game losing streak. And despite all the hate I got from you, Brock, our last show when I said the Pistons were going to go 2-2, the Detroit Pistons went 2-2 the week after our last show.
They did.
And yeah, really, really good stuff, I guess, 2 weeks ago. But some really bad stuff has happened in the injury department. And I'm going to be honest, I did not watch the Pistons play the Knicks last night, but I did look at the injury report, and it is massive. This is probably the longest it's been all season, and probably the worst in terms of who is out. Asor Thompson is out for the season with a blood clot, which is terrible. This is not an injury you want your rookie to have. And Isaiah Stewart is out for the season with a hammy injury. Stanley Umude is out for the season with a right ankle sprain. So there's 3 players gone since we've been gone for the season. Cade has been out recently. Whenever there's like a back-to-back, it feels like Cade will sit, which is totally fine. But Cade did not play against the Knicks. Jalen Duren has missed some time with a back injury. Simone Fontecchio has missed some time with a toe injury. Taj Gibson, who is probably old enough to be my dad, has missed some time with a hammy injury. Quentin Grimes has been out for a minute with a knee injury. That's 8 players, which is half the roster. And like just looking at this, Cade is a starter, Isaiah Stewart is a starter, Simone Fontecchio was starting, and Jalen Duren was starting. 4 starters are out right now. That leaves Jaden Ivey all by himself.
I actually had Troy Weaver contact me and ask me if I wanted to go and play for the team because they didn't have enough bodies to put out there. And yeah, I mean, you're looking at just a disaster of a rotation. Here you have it laid out here, Kurt, in last night's game against the Knicks. Marcus Sasser and James Wiseman were the only 2 players to play 30 or more minutes. Playing 20. Between 20 and 30. Between 20 and 30, you've got Malachi Flynn, who is that? You have Jaden Ivey. You have Jared Rhoden. Don't know who that is. And you have Troy Brown Jr., who's a scrub. And then you've got between 10 and 20 minutes, Evan Fournier, who, at least I've heard of him, Buddy Boeheim.
Bum.
And some dude whose name looks like chimpanzee.
Chimezie Metu.
Sure.
So I haven't been keeping up with Piston stuff as diligently as I have just because we've been busy. I did not even know this guy was on the roster, if I'm being honest.
I mean, Kurt, what is this? What is this? Toast? Who is Toast?
Tossin. I'm going to butcher his last name. I know it's Tossin. Evbo. No, I'm not even going to attempt it. His last name starts with an E.
Evbuamian. Something. I mean, Kurt, come on. What are we doing here?
This is
just cancel the season.
These are guys who, on any roster, if they make a roster, are player 15 out of 15. Most of these guys are. And I'm surprised. I think the Pistons lost by like around 20. I'm surprised they only lost by 20.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, whoa.
With how things are right now, the only thing that matters is what pick are we going to get in the NBA draft? And if we stay the worst team in the league, we're going to end up with the top 5 pick again, which has happened, what, now?
5 years?
4 years in a row. 4 years in a row with a top 5 pick. And we aren't even trying to tank. We're just that bad.
Imagine if that happened in the NFL. You never see that.
You don't.
4 years in a row of drafting in the top 5. I mean, come on.
It's ridiculous. And yeah.
The funny thing too is that, and we have some names listed here. The funny thing too is that they're going to get. I'm telling you right now, they're going to get the number 1 overall pick.
I know
and it's going to be in the year when it literally matters the least. They couldn't get it when Victor Wembanyama was the number 1 overall pick, and they couldn't get it the year they drafted Jaden Ivey.
It was a toss-up of who was going to be number 1, but it was going to be either Paulo, Jabari, or Chet. And, I mean, those are all 3 guys, maybe not Jabari Smith, who were worthy of that number 1 pick.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
they're going to get the number 1 overall pick. I can almost guarantee it. And they're going to be stuck with the worst draft class in years.
Mm-hmm.
And, Kurt, I already know how you feel, but let's discuss this a little bit. Do you think I'll tell everyone right now, you think that the Pistons should trade whatever pick they get?
Yes. And the issue is going to be trying to find someone to trade with, because this draft class is so bad. And it's funny because I was on Reddit the other day and I'm just browsing other NBA subreddits, and all everyone is talking about, so like every team who's bad, so that's us, the Wizards, the Spurs, everybody wants to trade their draft pick. At least fans want it to happen. Will it happen? Probably not. But yeah, the Pistons should look to trade it. I just don't know if they can even accomplish that, like realistically, even if they did have the first overall pick.
Yeah.
So,
and the problem too is that if this was a year where Victor Wembanyama was coming out, or Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, big name guys were coming out into the NBA, who was it between Wembanyama and Cade, or Wembanyama and was it Cade, Paulo, Wembanyama?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then the year before that, I want to say that was Anthony Edwards, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So,
but
those 4 years though, you have 4 guys who have proven that they're number 1 picks. Mm-hmm. You know, and here we are. Nobody knows who the first overall pick is going to be.
No,
it could be anybody.
Maybe one of them will eventually prove it. But looking at this, I mean, come on, you've got Nikola Topic from Serbia, which, oh boy.
I have some notes here on every player.
Okay.
Based upon what I've seen. I'll dive into it.
Okay, all right.
So Nikola Topic, which is the third Nikola with an itch name. You have Nikola Jokic, you have Nikola Jovic, and now we have Nikola Topic. He's pretty young. He's efficient. He's efficient like inside but not outside from 3. And I'd say he's an average to below average defender. So take that as you will. There's also Alex Sarr, who's, I believe, like 7'1", so he can play forward or center. He's from France. And he can't shoot threes, but he is efficient from the field. And his stats don't tell the whole story. He does average a good amount of blocks. But that's because he is a certified block chaser. All he wants is blocks at the cost of being a below average defender. Then there's Zachary Richesher. He's a forward from France. He's probably the rawest prospect that'll go in the top 5. He can score anywhere on the court, but he has a lot of issues, and I have them listed out. He has foul problems, passing problems, defensive issues. He's not efficient from the free throw line, and he has rebounding issues. So like I said, very, very raw prospect. And then we have Reed Sheppard.
Bum.
Guard from Kentucky. You know what's really interesting? Do you know who Reed Sheppard's father is?
No.
Jack Golke. Anyways, Reed Sheppard is really efficient from the field. He had a bad game against your Oakland Golden Grizzlies. But besides that bad game, he shoots the lights out. And he can pass and rebound really good for his size. But my only critique on Reed Sheppard, he needs to attack the paint more. So I know you have a very differing opinion on Reed Sheppard, but in the long term, he will be a solid NBA prospect. Okay. And then we got another Kentucky guard, Rob Dillingham. Efficient scorer, again, not as efficient as Reed Sheppard, but he does need to work on his defense, and he fouls a little too much. I'll say that. So we have a lot of guys with glaring issues. Dare I say Reed Sheppard is probably the safest pick in this draft? I might say that. I think Reed Sheppard is the safest pick in this draft. But this is a list of guys who, if you're the Detroit Pistons, they don't get you over any hump, any obstacle. So
I've got a few thoughts here. First thought is Reed Sheppard walked past us at the tournament. We were right there. He walked right past us. He's not big. He's shorter than I was expecting. Both of us were expecting.
Yeah.
And he's just not a big guy.
No. I think he's listed at 6'3". I'm 6'6", and Reed Sheppard was on the court, so he was elevated a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's in basketball shoes, so even more. This guy is 6'1", maybe 6 foot tops.
Yeah.
Tops.
Yeah. He's not big at all. And, you know, I'll admit I don't watch Kentucky basketball. The only game of theirs I watched all season was the one against Oakland. And Reed Sheppard only scored 3 points. So, I mean, I know the NBA drafts largely on potential and age. Age and potential are very big in the NBA specifically. But, I mean, come on, you're scoring 3 points against Oakland. And like you mentioned, he let Jack Golke just shoot all over him.
In defense of Reed Sheppard, NBA teams don't play zone defense.
That is true.
So
that's true.
At least not normally.
Yeah.
Only when they play the Pistons. Anyways, that's the Kurt Big Board. I guess maybe next week we'll explore some more top prospects that could go in the top 5, because there's still, like I said, nobody knows what's going to happen. This is going to be one of the most exciting drafts to watch, just because nobody knows what's going to happen.
So college basketball's all-time leading scorer, Caitlin Clark, has taken the Iowa Hawkeyes into the Sweet 16. And they were in the national championship game last year. They lost to LSU, but Kurt, Caitlin Clark is the most recognizable face in college sports right now. I don't think there's any question about it. And here you have written that an NBA scout says he would pick Caitlin Clark over Bronny James. I don't know where you're at on this, but I have a very strong opinion.
You do?
I do, but you go first. I want to hear what you have to say.
I agree with the NBA scout. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it real.
No,
you cannot sit in that chair, Brock, and say you would rather have Bronny James on your NBA basketball team.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Why,
Kurt? Let me teach you a lesson about genetics.
Oh my goodness.
Women's bodies are smaller, weaker. They're less talented physically. There's no way There is no way I'd ever even consider drafting Caitlin Clark over LeBron James Jr. There's no way.
I don't know if you're like being satirical.
No, I'm dead serious. I am dead serious. Caitlin Clark wouldn't last more than 2 seconds in the NBA.
I'd still rather have Caitlin Clark.
No way. No way.
I'd rather have Caitlin Clark come off the bench. You can sit in the corner, run around the 3-point line, and get ready for the ball.
No
the
way.
ball's going in every time.
She'd get blocked every time. Literally every time she shot the ball, it would get blocked.
She has range that a lot of dudes don't have, though.
No way.
I'm taking Caitlin Clark over Bronny James.
I'll take Bronny James, and my NBA team will be much better off. I can't believe that. Next, we're going to talk about Ben Simmons, who I don't even know what team he's on right now.
He's on the Brooklyn Nets.
Still?
Yes.
He was never traded or anything like that?
No, he was a part of the James Harden trade from when he was traded from Brooklyn to the 76ers. So he is still on the Brooklyn Nets. And, I haven't kept up with Ben Simmons. I've always been a big Ben Simmons root. I'd always root for Ben Simmons, but this guy has played 57 games in the past 3 seasons.
That's despicable.
And 57 games out of a maximum 82 times 3, which is 246? Is my math correct on this show for once?
That was fast.
Okay.
I don't know, but
246. Book it.
Okay, all right.
57 games out of 246. That is a fifth of 3 seasons. And everyone forgets how good Ben Simmons was. At his peak, like his 3rd year in the league, by the way, he missed his entire rookie year. This guy was averaging 16.9 points, 8.8 rebounds, 7.7 assists, and 1.4 steals. And he was a building block for the 76ers. And now this guy's just... I don't even think he's worth being on an NBA team anymore.
Yeah, you have to question how much he really loves basketball. I think he doesn't seem like a guy who really cares too much. And, there was a lot of debate about him and Donovan Mitchell for the Rookie of the Year back in, what was that, 2016?
20, I think 17.
17?
Or I forget the year, if I'm being completely honest.
Wasn't that the year that you said Simmons missed his rookie season, so that was really his second season?
Yeah, it was technically his second, but still his rookie season.
But Donovan Mitchell was a true rookie.
He was a true rookie, yes.
Did Simmons win that award?
I am pretty sure Simmons did win Rookie of the Year.
That's a disgrace. If you tough luck if you miss your rookie season. Chet Holmgren, same thing for him too. Should have been Donovan Mitchell in my opinion. Let's talk a little bit about Scotty Barnes, who Kurt you say is the funniest player in the league.
It's without question. There are days where I wish Scotty Barnes was a Detroit Piston. And if you believe in the butterfly effect, and if you believe that Troy Weaver's a bad GM, then Scotty Barnes probably could have been a Detroit Piston. Anyways, Scotty Barnes recently posted this picture of himself onto Instagram, and he was reading a book. A commenter asked what he was reading. He responded, "Not a thing. It's the aesthetic." And I just love Scotty Barnes. That's about it. He's also done a ton of other funny stuff. I remember at last year's All-Star break, I think him and Tyrese Maxey were doing like this shooting challenge, which if you want something to laugh at, go watch them do it because they both sucked really bad at it. When they were getting ready for it, Scotty Barnes kept saying to Tyrese Maxey, "We got to do a hug. We got to do a hug." Tyrese Maxey said, "No, bro." And you get an awkward hug moment between Scotty Barnes and Tyrese Maxey. And also, Scotty Barnes tripped one time running out of the tunnel at the start of a game. Another time he ran like not a human being out of a tunnel at the start of a game. And he dressed up as Frozone this previous Halloween and stood on a table. I love Scotty Barnes. I'll just leave it at that.
All right.
I'll leave it at that. I wish Scotty Barnes was a Detroit Piston.
So let's talk a little bit, too, about, you mentioned him being very, very funny. Kurt, what happened this past week was probably the funniest moment of the NBA season, I think.
And the most legendary jersey swap of all time.
Yes. Why don't you lay it out here? So
Grady Dick and Anthony Black exchanged jerseys. I'll let you do the math on that. When Grady Dick was asked why they exchanged jerseys, he claimed he played with Anthony Black growing up and against him. I did a little bit of research, not a ton. Anthony Black is from Texas and Grady Dick is from Kansas. So I don't know how they played against each other. Maybe it was just a stupid excuse from Grady Dick, but I'll let you guys do the math.
Clearly they were going for what everyone saw there in the picture. It was clear they were laughing the entire time. It was clearly staged, but it was very funny.
It was.
So, rounding out the show today, the Detroit Pistons mercifully only have 11 games left in the season. And it's the easiest remaining schedule in the league.
Which is not good for people who want... Yeah, for draft purposes.
Yeah.
Correct.
But with the lottery, it makes it's not all reliant on the schedule and wins and losses. Mm-hmm. As long as... I mean, if they finish what's the worst they could finish? Second worst in the league?
It might be third, depending on... Because there's still 12 games. I'll just break it down like this. If you finish as the worst team in the league, your pick is between 1 and 5. If you finish as the second worst, your pick is between 1 and 6. Third worst is 1 and 7. So the worse record you have, the better chances you have of staying up there in the draft.
Okay, so mathematically, they could probably finish 6th or 7th worst at best.
Which would be probably worst case scenario ever.
They'd have to win 7 games. 7 of the last 11.
Which won't happen.
I mean, especially with the lineup that they're throwing out there. But right now they're 12-60. That's the worst in the league by 2 games. Next is Washington at 14-58. And I'll just go by wins here. After that is the Spurs with 16 wins. So they have 4 fewer wins than the Spurs. The Hornets have 17 wins, so 5 fewer. And the Trailblazers have 19 wins, so 7 fewer. After that, they're really not going to catch anyone else. So you're looking at potentially, I guess, not 6th or 7th, 5th. 5th worst record in the league is possible. And obviously, in a lost season, I think people should be rooting for the Pistons to lose. Lock up that top 5 pick at the very, very worst top 5 pick. Hopefully 1 or 2. But like we mentioned, it's going to be hard to trade that when the draft class is so weak. So we'll have to wait and see. But this week, the Pistons will take on the Minnesota Timberwolves. That game is tomorrow, Wednesday, March 27th. Then they'll head to Washington to take on the Wizards. Jordan Poole and Isaiah Livers will be there. That's on Friday, March 29th. And then on April Fool's Day, the Pistons will host the Memphis Grizzlies at Little Caesars Arena. Kurt?
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
Kyle Kuzma, you bum. Get ready to lose.
I'll say 2 and 1.
2 and 1?
I'll say 2 and 1. They go 2
really?
and 1. Yep. They go 2 and 1.
All right. Well,
they get it done twice.
They're going to go 0 and 3 or 3 and 0, knowing our luck.
Yeah,
normally.
maybe.
So
we'll have to see. We'll be back next week with the Blue Ski Mask Show. We will see you all then. Thank you all so much for listening.